Hello to this edition where we have a look at a Databricks Community Edition in the cloud. You can test it out for free. We can run it in the cloud. We can connect our Jupyter notebooks to these cloud resources, and we can finally experience Delta Lake and the Lakehouse architecture on the platform it was supposed to run the whole time in the cloud. So here we start. At first, you have, of course, to sign up to Databricks Community Edition. If you do so, you get a very nice email from Databricks telling you you can create a notebook, you can have some introduction to data analysis, you can get started, you can deep dive into Delta Lake. And the nice thing, you can have a look at some YouTube videos, some Zoom conference calls, explaining in detail to you all the different solutions. You can get started with some Tech Talk series, and you can inform yourself about this structure. Now, the nice thing, of course, is we have a cloud platform free of charge to test some of our notebooks. And at first, let's fire up this cloud platform. You connect yourself to community.cloud.databricks.com. You sign up with your new account, and you are greeted by this screen. Now, very easily, you have to do two things. You have to start up the cluster in the cloud, and you have to import a Jupyter notebook with your PySpark and your Delta Lake code. For this, we are very simply going to compute. And as you can see, I started already a cluster because it takes up to 5 to maybe 10 minutes sometimes, if the system is really busy, to start your free cluster free of charge. Of course, you have to wait a little bit. So we have a cluster running. Our runtime version of Databricks is 8.3, which is a nice thing because this includes all our Delta Lake functionality default basic. So we are having Apache Spark 3.1.1. We are waiting, of course, for 3.2 with the new Panda API, but we are where we are. So we have a cluster, and the next thing is here. We have been here on compute. Since we have no data, we are starting fresh. We have to start here in our workspace, and we have to import a Jupyter notebook. Either you can import it locally from your file directory on your PC or wherever you're working, or you just can say, okay, I have a URL address and I import it directly from some location at the internet. I have exactly done this, and the notebook I've chosen is an original notebook by Databricks, and it is about building reliable data lakes with Delta Lake and Apache Spark. Of course, this is the main reason we're interested in. So what you see here, at first we have to connect our compute resources with our notebook. So quick start, here we are. You can detach the cluster, you can restart. You have your logs. Of course, it's a free version. We have only 2 cores. We have only 15 gigabytes of RAM. So, well, you cannot expect too much for this free version. But what we get, we can test. We can test our code. We can see how it works. And as a short reminder, the Delta Lake functionality, we have here an open Parquet format. We have some ACID transactions. We have Schema Enforcement. We can go back in time and we can do quite a lot of things with streaming and batch. Let's execute just 1 or 2 cells, because otherwise this video would get too long. I want to keep it below 5 minutes. So first thing is we are loading our data that we have in a Parquet file format or in a CSV file format, and we save it as a Delta Lake table. And as you can see, this is quite easy. At first we have a path, and the path is here an internal Databricks directory where we have a Parquet file. It's about loan and loan risks, I see. And we say we create a Delta table with the loan data that we have in the Parquet file. So you are familiar with our Spark command, Spark read format Parquet. and load it from our path we defined, and then you write it to a Delta table and you save it in this path. Then you can say Spark read format, our Delta format from our path, and you create a table and you call it loans Delta. So let's execute this cell. Let's see if we are up and running. Yeah, maybe I should clear all the results that you see that we are really here. Live coding, real-time coding. And we have now our loans Delta. And of course, you have a SQL API and a Python API. Here we operate on a SQL API. And we say select everything from our loans Delta table. And you have here a count 14,000 entries. And if you say I want to have the first, I don't know, let's limit it to 3 entries. Let's display these 3 entries. You see we have a very simple table, loan ID, funded amount, paid amount, and the state address, for example, for our loan calculation example. Now I want to show you just one more thing, not the data streaming and the beautiful thing you can do with the data streaming, but I want to show you schema enforcement on write. This is very nice because imagine you have here some columns identified and you see it's the same column, name, column ID, funded amount, paid amount, and the state. But now we add another column. And this column we call closed, whatever, and it has a Boolean value, true or false. We add items, and now we say Spark create data frame from our 2 items, and we define funded amount as integer. Well, of course, and you run this. Great, and now you want to write it as an append mode to your Delta, and you will see that this results in an error. Takes some time. Error running command 16, and our command 16, as you can see here, a schema mismatch detected when writing to the Delta table. Of course, because now our Delta table has an additional column we called closed, and this substitutes an error. Now the nice thing with the Delta Lake system is we have here the same command, Spark, write format the Delta table mode append, here also mode append, and now we say the option is merge the schema with the Boolean value true and save it again to the Delta path. And now you will see this is done very nicely and we do not get an error reported back to us. Yep, takes a little bit of time and perfect, executed. So this is the beautiful thing. If you start in the cloud on the platform, on Databricks free community edition platform, you can really appreciate and test out your code. You can play around with it. And as you can see, there's a lot of other data. You can transform your existing data. You can play around with the Delta Lake tables. You can change the table using merge command and whatsoever. I would say have a look at this, play around with yourself. I will leave you the address of this file in the description of this YouTube video. Sign up for the free community edition, start up a cluster, try out different notebooks. You can find very different notebooks if you go to Databricks, and you see here on Learn, you have a notebook gallery. And this is the last tip in this video. You have here example notebooks, and for example, the notebook I just showed you is here, tutorial Introduction to Delta Lake. And again, databricks.com, just go in here, Learn, Notebook Gallery, and here you are. And you have here, of course, an R version, and you have a deep dive in Delta Lake. And if you're interested in machine learning, you have some sample notebooks I highly recommend to learn, to understand how it's running on a cluster in a cloud. Machine learning ML flow, end-to-end support for machine learning. Have a look at these examples. It is really fascinating, and you can try it out yourself on a free cluster resource. Of course, Spark, different Spark application and some use cases. You can play around. This is free of charge. You will learn a huge amount of new facts, of new code sequence, and I highly recommend you start with Databricks free edition in the cloud to get familiar with the cloud resources that really bring out the best in the application with Delta Lake and Lakehouse Architecture. Thank you. This was it for this video, and I hope to see you in the next video.